Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I know it's one of the last sessions of Data and AI Summit for this week, so super appreciate you all staying back and hanging out with Arun and I. We're really excited today to talk about AI security at Databricks, and specifically the Databricks AI Security Framework, or what we call the DASF, which we launched into market in late March. I'm Kelly. I work in product marketing here, representing security, compliance, and privacy. I have the distinct pleasure of working with our Databricks security team and our security product management team and all their amazing work they're doing internally and externally to help our customers keep Databricks secure. And Arun, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks to you all for joining us here today, this evening. My name is Arun Pamulapati. I am Senior Security Field Engineer. I've been with Databricks for 6 years. I had the pleasure of working with amazing security team that we have at Databricks. I'm building on their shoulders here. So a lot of work that you see here is amazing work, how we actually care and build security into Databricks platform. And I'm also the co-author of Databricks AI Security Framework, as well as security analysis tool. We are going to touch upon that today a bit, so we are looking forward to delivering this amazing content. We're excited here. Thank you.
Yes, awesome. So while I linger on this slide for just a moment, Databricks AI Security Framework, has anyone here downloaded it yet in the room? Raise a hands. I know someone has. Yes, a couple people. Thank you. Well, even if you haven't, we're going to have a QR code for you to download it and follow along if you'd like, but you'll also get a speed run today of what it's all about and how you're going to be able to use it. So session outcomes for today. We're going to do the who, what, why of the Databricks AI Security Framework, who it's intended for, why we built it, what it is. Then we're going to spend the bulk of it, especially Arun, on how you're going to use it, how AI security risks arise, and how you can use the DASF to identify them, and then how you can leverage Databricks security controls and what we call the SAT tool to mitigate these risks. So first, I'm going to dive a little bit more into the world of generative AI and AI security. So I'm pretty sure all of you were in the keynote yesterday morning with Ollie, and he said it loud and clear. Everyone is doing AI. And in fact, 91% of organizations are experimenting or investing in AI, and it's how organizations are going to remain competitive and productive in the market. But the reality is it's really challenging to build and deploy AI, and so you're in this experimental phase, and so most organizations are not confident in fully deploying their AI models into production. And there's a couple reasons why, and we're going to focus on the first reason, which is AI security. So the three reasons being no control over the data or the models. There's unpredictable performance, and it's also expensive. But as I said today, we're going to give you some tools on how to aid in the first reason, which is AI security when it comes to data leakage, control and ownership for your models and whatnot. So a couple reasons why this came into the creation of the Databricks AI Security Framework. So as we've been investing Databricks into more AI areas, for example, our acquisition of Mosaic ML about a year ago, our Databricks security team was working really closely with so many different customers and security teams and CISOs, and they were really nervous and not really sure what AI is and the different terminology of AI models and how they should be using AI in their organizations, and kind of being the naysayer in those organizations as their data teams are all in on AI, but the security teams are not quite sure on what to do and are a little scared. And so one of the reasons why we created the Databricks AI Security Framework is to create that common language between data teams, privacy teams, security teams, governance teams, so they can all be on the same page of how AI models work, what are the risks that are associated when companies are deploying them, and what are the tools and mitigations that they can adopt in place to help ensure that they're able to leverage AI security. So that relates to the second point, which is really this is a very lengthy white paper to help demystify AI, the system components, the risks, and the tools. And it really provides a great defense in depth approach with all these mappings to different standards. We also wanted to do justice to industry validation, which I'll explain more on the next slide, of all the great people we worked with internally at Databricks, and also a lot of external validation from 15 different AI security experts externally in the market. And then also, we definitely want to be seen as a AI thought leader, especially when it comes to AI security, as our company continues to trudge forward as being a top leader in generative AI. So as I mentioned, what we're really happy about when we launched this is we had a lot of different collaborators internally at Databricks with our AI experts. We had founders looking over this, different folks in sales and engineering, and of course our awesome Databricks security team collaborating all of this. And then we also had a lot of external validation, even some folks that spoke here this week from Robust Intelligence, Capital One, Hidden Layer. They're all listed in the white paper as contributors, and we're always looking for contributors as we put out new versions of the white paper. So if you're interested, please let us know after the talk. And so this looks like it's not fully loading on the right-hand slide, but the AI Security Framework, if you haven't downloaded it, which I know a few folks haven't, there's a QR code in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen. It is our holistic approach to AI security with recommendations on how to manage and deploy AI models safely and securely. What I really love about this paper is it's not just Databricks-centric. A lot of the controls that we recommend, yes, we have them in Databricks, but we've written them in an agnostic way, so no matter what cloud or what data platform provider you are using in your organization, you'll be able to map that with other providers as well. But we also will link to Databricks documentation where relevant. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Arun, who's going to talk more about the how when it comes to the Databricks AI Security Framework.
Thank you, Kelly. All right, so for some reason, the screenshot is not loading, but that's not super important here. It's just a screenshot of the first page of the AI Security Framework. But the most important thing is if you download the white paper, you will see these important things in that paper, right? So there are 55 AI security risks that we cataloged. We are going to deep dive into that. And then there are 6 AI deployment types that you would see as part of the, how you would interact with the AI. We'll go into the details, we'll define what those are, so that way you understand them. At the same point, those 55 AI security risks that we are talking about, we annotated in what type of AI deployments they would manifest, right? This is very important. That way, you don't need to worry about all 55 risks that are out there. You need to be focusing on how you are using AI, and then you narrow down the 55, which I will show you how to do that with the white paper, and then you focus on those, right? So that way you know your risk set. Once you know the risk set, you want to understand where they would appear in your AI system, right? So we'll go through how that AI system looks like. So if there is one thing that you are going to walk out of this room is with a good visual of what AI system looks like, right? Rest is going to be much easier once you digest that. Rest of it is all in the white paper, right? So you will be able to clearly understand when you go home. And then there are 53 mitigation controls to help you navigate those risks and see how to implement them, whether you are on Databricks or on some other platform. As Kelly said, we took the time because we are actually building on the shoulders of rest of the people who came before us, understanding these risks and cataloging these risks, and then providing some kind of controls. We kept it as an open paper for anybody who is practicing AI. Of course, we give you, once you understand those controls, we'll show you how to deploy those controls with Databricks if you're a Databricks customer. Okay? So with that, let's look at each one of these sections and then see how they connect with each other, okay? So when we talk about what AI risk is, sometimes it's easier to look at something that happened and then give a name to it, right? We all understand some incidents that might have happened. So these are real incidents that happen in AI world. And my focus is not to kind of, somehow, belittle or show what is that. That's why I'm going to abstract some of the names or organizations, but we are going to focus on how to avoid those situations and learn from those incidents so that we don't have that happening to our organizations, right? So first we need to understand what AI security is, right? Some of you who are security minded may be very familiar with traditional cybersecurity, right? AI is software. So if AI is software, why is not cybersecurity, and why do we need to even dive into these things? Why not just apply what we had before and then move forward, right? So let's take time to understand what happened. That way we can see how it is a little different, right? So this is an actual incident where the well-meaning author of a model took the time and showed kind of interest in actually sharing their work, and they posted this on GitHub. But in that process, unfortunately, they also left credentials as part of their own training that went into the model, which was not their intention. And what happened was, now they exposed 38 terabytes of data, unfortunately, as part of the container they provided for that model, right? So in your mind, what do you all think? Is this AI security? Is it lack of, leakage of credentials, which is basically going to compromise the access controls of the data set, right? What do you all think? Is it different from what you had seen before, or is same as before? Just shout out whatever you feel like. Anybody? So in general, this is kind of, AI security as manifesting as cyber security that you're all familiar with. There is nothing new here. We had seen, unfortunately, sometimes credentials being exposed. It just happened to be coming through as a Git project for models, but there's still, traditional access controls or leakage of your tokens or so on and so forth, right? So we need to, as part of AI security, we definitely need to include cybersecurity, which we already are familiar with. But let's take the next example, where in this model, where there is this model that is going to be attacked by adversarial machine learning processes by hackers, right? So if you take the first example up there, there is an image of panda. For the naked eye, it is panda, okay? But if you add a bit of noise, for a human being, it still looks like panda, but to AI, it looks like gibbon. You might say, Arun, this is research, PhD, why do I care about pandas and gibbons, right? Think of you implemented and deployed AI model for loan application approvals. As a loan processor, if you're a human being and reviewing that, you will see the numbers. For example, salary, 100,000K, and if there is a extra zero added at the end of that, right, to that number, it looks like still 100,000K if that extra zero is with the background color, right? So in this situation, you are, as a loan processor, you say, for this loan, 100,000 not enough as your income, I'm going to reject your loan because we are expecting, say, for this type of loan, at least your household income to be 250K. But now, if you give this same application form to a model, it is going to approve because it looks at that number and it looks like with that extra zero, it's going to be much more than 100,000, right? So now it fooled the AI system, but when somebody is trying to review, it is still 100,000 because the zero that is added by this person who is trying to evade the AI is with extra zero there, right? So as a human, you are going to look at this and I'm going to say, okay, I would have rejected this because they're not lying, or whatever that thing is. But when it comes to AI, it doesn't know how to discriminate that. Let's take another example. This was actually run by researchers against a resume processing system. People to fool and just kind of show that actually, what AI is doing, they intentionally added in their resume in the background color all the skills of AI. So for a human, if you as a human being, if you're reviewing that, there is AI in their most recent project, But in the actual background color, what AI is looking at is they have like, AI and data science, PhD, and all of that everywhere in that. So that is going to move that resume forward because it thinks this person is more skilled than somebody who is showing AI a couple of times. So that's like, those are the examples of the first one, right? The second one is more of, familiar with, autonomous driving. That car is now never going to come out of that place because it is seeing that it doesn't want to break the rules. More recently, actually, somebody walked with a T-shirt with stop sign on the sidewalk, and then they were able to manage to make some of these autonomous cars stop, thinking that there is actually a stop sign, right? So those are the types of attacks that can manifest out there, right? So, and the other one you see as an example there is that you are a data scientist, and you are on a tight schedule, and you are really interested in building a model, but you found something like a Hugging Face, where the model that you are actually trying to build is available and readily well documented, and it's going to reduce your cost because training the same model and GPUs may be going to cost you $500K or something like that. And then you might feel like, okay, it may be something I can download, put it in my enterprise, and then give it, fine-tune it, and then deploy it into production. But what if there is a malicious intent and there is pickle attack kind of situation where that model is actually planted as a Trojan model, which may be doing the things that you want, but behind the scenes it's also exfiltrating the data, right? So these are kind of examples where you would see, which is also part of AI security, which we call adversarial machine learning, right? For these kind of things, you need to red team, and you need to kind of vet and have some controls that we all expect from the platforms that you're using for AI training. The next one is, this is more of a social attacks on some of the systems that you may deploy out there, right? So in this case, people are trying to communicate with and kind of do prompt engineering against this model that is put out by a reputable organization, and then this is kind of making decisions that are not in the context of the company that it should be behaving, right? So there is lack of guardrails again with these models, and then it is kind of producing things that you don't want to produce. So those are some examples. What we did was, in the white paper that you look at, we went through potentially what are all the risks that are possible on AI systems, and we cataloged those. So if you download the paper, you will see 55 risks that we cataloged. And if you look at the list there, the ones in black color are traditional cybersecurity. The ones in red are novel attacks on AI system, right? So now that we established what AI security is, what are the potential risks, in the white paper, we move forward and we try to see which ones would be applicable out of those 55 based on how you are using AI, okay? So, it's kind of slow a little bit. So we looked at 55 risks. Let's move to the next part, what are the different deployment types. So when it comes to AI, we classified AI into 6 different types of deployment types based on how you are using AI. The one at the far, maybe on my left here, is the predictive AI, that is traditional machine learning, right? So this has been there for, if not decade, even maybe at least in your organization, maybe at least last 3-5 years, you've been maybe likely doing, traditional ML training with your data, and then you are putting that into production, right? And on the Gen AI side, which is a little bit newish, right now it's been close to 1.5 to 2 years, where you have different ways of using Gen AI, right? So you have either foundational models or external models that are available, which are provided by some reputable organizations. Take Llama 3 from Meta, or DBRX from Databricks as existing models. And what you're doing is you're providing your organizational prompt to get value from that model, right? So that's one way to use AI. You're just sending a prompt, and then you're getting response. In that situation, the data, your organizational data, which is basically the x-axis, is very little. But you're also missing out on the getting most value because it doesn't know bigger context than the prompt that you sent in there, right? With RAG, you are sending bigger data set to give better context, and you are getting better answers, right? So that AI understands what you are asking about and provide you a little bit better response to you, right? So in these two cases, the models usually forget intentionally, that is by design, right, what you sent as your organizational data, and potentially, hopefully they don't also log or use the data for training their models, right? At least at Databricks, we give you that kind of commitment if you're using our services as part of your external models, right? We don't train on your data, we don't log, we don't basically remember the data that you sent in. We provide you a response and we move on, right? But the problem with this side of the system is that it is still lacking the bigger context, right? In this situation, the next step to get more value, the value is to fine-tune the model. In that situation, what you are doing is you are making digital twins of your organization by giving much more knowledge to that system and making it intelligent, right? So you move, as you move from left side to right side, as it was mentioned in the keynote, from general knowledge systems to you're moving towards the data intelligence systems, right? Because with the context it has, it's going to become much more intelligent and provide you better responses. If you want further, this is very rare, but based on your special needs, sometimes you may fully pre-train a model from scratch, which we, as an organization, we provide if there is that kind of need, because you are in a specific industry, that general knowledge system may not be applicable for you, because knowing how far moon is from here is super cool, but if you're talking about medical data sets and trying to figure out genomic analysis or what sort of that, those models somehow need to be pre-trained from that specific industry, right? So the point here is not about where, which system is right. As Kelly mentioned, this talk is not about performance or the quality or the cost. This talk is about how do you reason about security with these systems, right? The more the context you have, you need to think about where your control should be. We're not encouraging or discouraging to pick one or the other. For whatever the business value you choose, that is the right system for you. What we are here is to provide you, hey, if you're deploying this way, here are the risks, here are the controls you should be using, okay? So there are 6 different ways of deploying, and then we are going to use, in the paper, we go very deep into this, what those are, why those are, how they manifest into your organization, right? So we talked about 55 risks, annotated with 6 different deployments. So certain risks apply based on the deployment type, right? So if you're using RAG, you have relevant risks. If you're using a foundational model or external model, you have less in the shared responsibility. The builder, the provider of that model has more responsibility, and you need to protect your prompts, and you need to protect your RAG context that you're giving, right? So that's how you should be reasoning about. And we go into details in the white paper about how to think about those. Now that we understood the deployment types and the risks, let's put this on a picture and see what, a big picture of what this means for your organization, okay? So let's look at the 12 components of AI system. So you start as your data ops with data. You need to have some data to be meaningful about any AI, right? Whether you are going to give it as simple prompt that is also coming from somewhere, or if you are going to give RAG context that is coming from somewhere, that is your data. You need to have the data ready for AI. So we are not going to, this whole conference was about that. We are not going to get into the details of how to build that. You might have heard and attended different sessions. But from the data, you're going to arrive at data sets, and then you're going to catalog the data, label the data, and then classify the data and make it available with access controls with respect to people in your organization. Good? So Now that you have data, you can do with some AI with it, right? Now it is time to decide how you're going to approach that. Are you going to train your custom models in a traditional ML way, or are you going to use the data to call external models as prompt, or are you going to fine tune? Are you going to pre-train, or are you going to use one of the foundational models that is available and then just integrate that with that model, right? But somehow this data has to make it there to get value from those models. And you need to manage those models so that you can discover them and know who is doing what in your organization. And then you need to deploy those models in case if it is one of those custom models or fine-tuned models or pre-trained models, so that you have a model serving infrastructure that you would be managing. And there would be a way to integrate that, right? Ultimately, your goal is to use that model with your applications, right? The reason you build this is to kind of give that, right? So you have model operations at in the middle, and you have DevSecOps to manage those models and model serving services and applications and integrations. Okay, so with this, armed with this understanding of AI system components, let's see how this transpires into the risk side. So we understood 12 components. We understood 6 different deployments, and then we got the 12 components that we talked about. Now let's put those risks on top of this, right? So those 55 risks that we talked about, we placed them in the white paper on a respective component. That's why those numbers that we talk about, like data prep, and then we have certain risks that we annotate, right? So these risks would be now, if you have the data, you would be that you are pushing into your AI, you need to understand what the risks are, and then we need to figure out how to mitigate those by putting right controls in that place. So in the paper, we go through each one of those risks, and then what controls that you would be using, which we are going to see with one example, right? So we talked about those, these numbers. So if you look at raw data, there are 10 risks. So if I go back, you will see here on the raw data 10. So the 10 represents the number there, right? So the ones on those boxes are numbered according to in the white paper. We cataloged those, right? And then we mapped these to how we came up with these risk set, right? Like whether it's MITRE-ATLAS, or is it from OWASP LLM top 10, OWASP ML top 10. Those are the sources. We want to be, as Kelly said, we want to be aligned with the industry standards and use the language and the things that you would be looking for as a practitioner, and make sure we have those properly cataloged, right? So now that you know where these risks would appear, let's look one risk, for example, data poisoning. So data poisoning is one of those core things you should be looking at, because as you know, the thing that powers your AI, both at the time of training and also at the time of inference, is basically your data. If someone wants to mess with your organization, all they have to do is go and attack your data first, and then change the labels maybe that would impact, or change the features in your data. And then what happens is, when you operationalize this would be manifesting into your ML, right? And then in effect, that would also affect your downstream systems, okay? So in the paper, you would see for each one of those a risk definition and the controls, right? So how do I understand, how do I reason about those controls that needs to go? And visually, now let's see where that data poisoning risks would appear. Okay, so because it is it's about different types of data, it would appear in the respective areas, right? It can be on the raw data, or it can be the labels that you prepared and it can be on the training data set that's about to go into your ML, or it can be even the feedback loop that is there, which they can attack by basically messing with your ML inference system by giving thumbs up, thumbs down, and then kind of making the model somehow think that what it is actually inferring is wrong, and at some point it will change its mind, right? Because there is like persistent attack on the model inferences with negative feedback to that, right? So given that, let's look at what the controls looks like. So you need to protect the data, the controls would be across the AI system. The approach we take here is, as Kelly mentioned earlier, as part of our motivation is to give a comprehensive set of controls with defense in depth approach, okay? So you have, starting with like, who is coming into my platform? Simple things like, have we done single sign-on integration? Have we enabled multi-factor authentication so that people who are coming into my data platform are the people that I trust, right? And then you go about something like private link and IP access list so that you know they're coming from known network to your organization. These things are nothing to, the control side, when you look at it, it's not like very different from your traditional data security. These are things that you would be doing even if you were just only practicing BI, right? It's just that you are, with those controls, you're addressing different type of risk. So we cataloged those and we listed all those risks against that in the paper. So if I go back one screenshot, here in the white paper you would see those controls we mentioned, right? The risk and all the controls that would go, and if you click on the control in the white paper, you would see the description of that, and also you'll get a link to Databricks documentation on how to implement that in your organization. Okay? So with that, we have done the same thing for 55 risks with mappings that you would be looking for. So let's look at now the overall, how to use this framework in action, right? That's the whole point. So you would be using this video, hopefully it will come online, as a companion, and you have the white paper, 85-page white paper, and you start applying this approach. So to do any of this to worthwhile for you, first you need to have a use case. If not, you're likely doing some kind of I would say you're trying to play and see how AI is working for you, or you're doing your kids' homework. That's not a use case, so none of this applies for that purpose, right? You have a serious use case. First, you need to have a data set that would be helping with AI. You have stakeholders, right? And you have some kind of requirements for your organization based on whether you are in given industry, might have some expectations. So we don't know those things, but you know those things. And you have applications that would be downstream integrating into the thing that you're building. So what are the applications that are going to be impacted, right? One thing that is going to be different if you've been seeing data science for a while is that in the past, data science was more of a data scientist with a laptop or their own maybe single instance of somewhere sitting in the cloud would run through some kind of analytics. Mostly those people used to be statisticians or even maybe somewhat advanced data scientists. And the output used to be a report, a PDF or PowerPoint that would go to an executive's desk saying that, hey, I looked at all of these things that how we are selling, based on historically what happened. I think your focus should be here. And armed with that, the executive would go and make some decisions. But in the newer world, the consumer of this data science application is not going to be just a report and through an executive through a report. It is going to be applications that are going to be integrated, just like traditional systems. That's what you are basically building AI systems that are somehow working with each other through APIs, and they're basically becoming part of your enterprise software stack. That's why we need to kind of think a bit more reasonably as a security practitioners that how is that going to impact my downstream systems? If it is a PDF file that was generated for an executive in the past, okay, worst case, the executive got wrong inputs and he's going to go on a wrong path for a while. And as a human being, at some point, he will realize that this is not working and he will go back and tell the data scientist that we need to look at this different way. But the components that are getting integrated, you need to have that kind of thought process of how you include that, right? So once you have the use case, now you need to look at how you are implementing that use case, what type of deployment you are doing. And the deployment model may be using a RAG. Let's take that as an example. So you're taking your data from your organization, you are going to do retrieval augmented generation, and then at that point, DASF will help you out of those 55 risks. It will narrow it down to a specific set of controls that we labeled in the paper, right? So these are the things that we labeled. If you look at the white paper, you can narrow now that I'm using RAG, the ones that are highlighted are the ones that would be applicable in that use case, right? That would be 24 risks that you would be looking at, right? Not all the 55 that are originally there, because in this way of implementing, that's what the impact is. Now that you have the risk set, you are going to use the controls that we provided for all those 24 risks, and then you are going to basically apply those 34 controls, and you would not need to look at rest of the 53 controls that we have, because in this use case, that's what is applicable for you, right? So now you are going to implement that in your data platform. If it is Databricks, we provide you for each one of those 34 controls, we give you direct link to the documentation, right? So you would be going and making sure your Databricks workspaces and your data assets are basically built according to the the controls that we mentioned. You are going to work with your DevOps team, you are going to work with your MLOps team, your DevSecOps team, say that, hey, have we done all of these, right? But there is a little bit of help we can provide. So if you want to test this, we built a tool called Security Analysis Tool, which is mapped to Databricks AI Security Framework. So what you can do is, using Security Analysis Tool, you can monitor your security health of your Databricks account workspaces for the controls that we mentioned, right? There are process-related controls that we cannot check for you, because this is as part of the framework, the risks, we do tell you to do some process-oriented things that you need to implement. Those are some things that we cannot test. But if you switched on single sign-on, or if you have IP access list or not, those things we can kind of help through SAT and then alert those for you. So if you take the same example, the dataset 3.1, which is basically data poisoning, the controls we mentioned are listed here, and then SAT will verify for you, and then will tell you, hey, here are all the things that are applicable for this as part of Databricks AI Security Framework, and here are all the green check marks you're getting, right? So you will be able to verify your workspaces, and then we do provide top controls, right? If you, as I mentioned, if you are going to take one thing from this conversation, this meeting, this session here, the AI Security Framework picture, getting how AI looks like, the system components, where they appear. The second thing that I would request you to pay attention to is this list here, right? Hey, when you go back home, not tomorrow, hopefully you need to just take some rest, maybe Monday, first thing you need to ask is, have we implemented single sign-on with multi-factor authentication? Do we have IP access list enabled so that we know right people with right authentication and right network are coming into our data assets, to our AI system? Start there, right? And then work your way down to different things, okay? So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Kelly to give you some next steps that you can follow through.
Awesome, thanks, Arun. All right, so getting started, our top 3 next steps, in addition to that last slide you had up. read our white paper, download the SAT tool, and schedule an AI security workshop. So just a few more details. Please, we have a lot of resources out. Send these to your teams. On our Databricks Security and Trust Center, we have a new AI security webpage that has everything you need to know about DASF and lots of different blogs and flyers and what have you. Please share those with your organizations or any security community groups that you're in. Second, download the SAT tool. Arun gave a great explanation, but that is also available on our Trust Center as well under the security features page. And then finally, we covered as much as we could in this session, but we also offer a workshop. So this can be dedicated for your organization, or we try to bring groups of organizations together based on your industry or even like your geographic location. Mainly targeted towards C-level audience, but we've done it for like big security teams, big data governance teams in the past. And it's led by our Databricks AI Security Framework authors, but also folks in Databricks who have now been trained on this framework. You can email us at dasf@databricks.com to schedule them. And also, our team wants to hear from you. And I'm trying to get the QR code back up. So we had some folks from our product team in the audience as well. We have a lot of previews for security and compliance features at Databricks. We want to have an advisory board as well. If that's something you're interested in joining, just a plug here, scan that QR code and fill out the survey. We want to build a bigger security community with you all. So thank you so much and safe travels back home.
Thank you.